Loose cannons blasting on them haters. And we in Tampa Bay, baby. Tampa, where you from? The 813 going crazy. Yeah. This Bucs podcast be the greatest. Loose cannons blasting on them haters. Now when I say the loose cannons, boy, do you know what I mean? I'm talking Bobby Latte, Stank Bastard, and Samurai Lee. You ain't never seen no hurt before, no podcast like this. These boys they entertain you, then take you on road trips, go to other cities, raid and pillage, watch the Bucs kick ass.
What is up, Bucs Nation? It is Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024, and you are watching the Loose Cannons podcast, officially part of the 813 network, which means you can find us not only on this amazing YouTube channel, but also on www.the813.tv, along with the fully loaded podcast inside the 813. Rock Riley every single day from One Buck, and a plethora of other writers and creators pushing out video, written articles, and news about your favorite team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Make sure you guys check out the website. And of course, if you are new, hit that subscribe button on your way out tonight. And if not, make sure you hit the like button and leave us a comment. We apologize for the other stream being absolutely garbage. We found out that YouTube doesn't like it if Stank does a show without his pants on. So pants are back on. YouTube stream looks to be healthy. Stanker, Buccaneers, Monday Night Football, Raymond James Stadium. Baltimore beats us 41-31. Closer score than the actual reality of the game. One of the worst experiences I've had going to a game at Raymond James. The way it ended, the gut-wrenching sickness that we felt after Chris Godwin goes down. Just all of it and how it all fell apart. Seeing Mike Evans go down. Just the whole deal. It ranks pretty high up there for me. Curious how high it ranks up there for you in terms of just bad experiences at Raymond James. Kind of just beyond the loss itself.
Yeah. Before you sneezed and knocked the whole fucking stream offline, I think I was saying one of the worst games I've ever been to, especially the ending. The way it ended was just like a fucking kick in the fucking dick hole. And I don't know if you ever had your dick hole kicked, but it doesn't feel good. And that's exactly how it felt to me out there, watching Chris's foot get turned backwards. When I don't know, man. It didn't sit with me right. And I'm not really going to criticize Todd. I get it. You got to play it till the end of the game and all those types of things. But man, in retrospect, bad decision to have those guys out there doing what they did. Skip made a good, our friend of the show. Skip, old school, hate the Eagles, been a Bucs fan forever, suffered through the bad years and lean years with me. Made a good point, though. We weren't complaining when they were in there running it up on New Orleans the week before. So we really have no legs to stand on, criticizing them now. It happens. I mean, Lamar was in there when they were up by 30 or whatever the fuck it was at one point. So it's just going to happen. You can't really avoid injuries. It was a freak fucking thing. You feel terrible for Chris. I know we're going to talk more about that. But anyways, you asked me how I felt. I still feel sick. I feel like I've gained 20 pounds since the game. I've been eating nonstop, crying. My wife's like, "What's wrong?"
You got a little fatness in your face.
I'm so fat right now, and I just haven't been able to let it out. It's like blue balls, but it's my entire body and donuts. So
donuts, lots of donuts. Yeah, you look like a donut guy. Listen, it is one of the rare times where a loss for the Bucs just kind of carries over for me. Like I've been in a fog, I've been under a dark cloud since that moment at the end of the game. And we'll get into the whole thing with Chris Godwin and the decision, Todd Bowles, and all that. That's part of our discussion tonight. But man, it really took a lot of the wind out of just like my week has been absolutely garbage. I'm just snapping at everybody. I pushed an old lady over this afternoon when I was, having my mail delivered. She was kind of walking by. Mailman put the mail in my hand. She was there. I just pushed her over. I had no reason for it. I mean, it didn't make sense. It was not a kind thing to do. But you know what? She was just wrong place, wrong time. And that's just sometimes that's what happens. And the Bucs lost, the way they lost, just all of it. This old lady wants to walk through my driveway. Like, come on. Like, wake up, dude. It's not happening. Not this week. But anyway, let's talk about Todd Bowles in terms of Todd Bowles as a defensive coordinator, okay? He's the head coach of football team. He's a defensive guy. So you would expect naturally the defensive side of the ball should be in good hands. That would be the strength of this team. He doesn't meddle with the offense. He focuses on his baby, which is the defensive side of the ball. I think we have a lot of talent. We got Vita, we got Cansey, we have Yaya Diaby. I still like Logan Hall. I like JTS for what he does do. Obviously, he's not an all-star. And then we've got Antoine and Jordan Whitehead and now Zion. And I think we have enough talent on this team on the defensive side of the ball to be better than what we are right now. And this team is just giving up 500 yards left and right. What can Todd do differently? Is it making the defensive scheme simpler? Is it making it less complicated? Is it having these guys do less and just kind of play ball? Is it none of that? Is it just the guys not executing? Is it them not communicating? How do you alleviate the issue of no communication? How do you alleviate these guys missing tackles, not making plays, always in the wrong spot, leaving guys wide the fuck open? Is it Todd stank? Is this the players? Is there something Todd can do differently? Or like, where do we go with this side of the ball? Because it's a mess.
Well, one positive is that we don't have to face Lamar Jackson and that offense, hopefully ever again, unless it's in the Super Bowl. We all know how Todd does things the second time around. Yeah, they break a lot of defenses. They make things difficult. And, you know, Todd's a wild man back there. And I think a lot of times because he does so much, his system is so complicated. He's always trying to fool guys, fool quarterbacks, fool offenses, period, fool coordinators and other coaches. I think that can sometimes put a little additional, too much stress on our team, especially in the secondary for whatever reason. It seems to always break down there. At least that's where we see it, right? You said it all game. A lot of it didn't make sense to me in regards to the rotation, the defensive line. We weren't getting pressure with the B unit. We never really do. And because of that, I think Todd is hesitant to be, aggressive everywhere because we're just not getting pressure up front. So he plays, these soft zones. And I don't know, man, like you could maybe point to Vita being dinged before and, questionable the day of the game. And because he's the anchor of that rotation, he decided to play them a little bit less. Maybe that's the reason. I don't know, but it seems crazy because one guy's getting limited snaps to give the entire rotation, which is your best rotation, also limit their snaps too. Don't know.
Yeah, I put out a video the very next morning. I thought about it on the entire drive home. You heard me next to you stank at the game. I was complaining about it the entire game. I've complained about it in years past, but it's never been this bad. And for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, the Bucs were shifting out their entire defensive line in like hockey line shifts. And I get it. Sometimes you have to do that to kind of keep these guys a little fresh. But they did it for 3 straight offensive possessions between the Ravens and the Bucs. 3 straight possessions, okay? Not counting TV timeouts, not counting kickoffs. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. And you're playing against a team whose strength is up front. You got a running back who's ridiculous. He's an alien. You got an MVP candidate who can beat you throwing and passing and running. Okay? In the first quarter, he didn't pull them out. So they were getting home on the blitzes, and they were getting home rushing the passer with the front 4, and it was working. And so when you put that, he takes out the entire unit. Like, I get it. Vita Vea wants to sit out, or you want to sit him, have him play less snaps because he's a little ginger. I get it. That's fine. But why would you take out all of your skill and then put out all of your backups? That doesn't work well. And then you blitz behind that too. Not only do they not hold up the blockers and allow the blitzers to get home, they make it impossible on the back end of the defense to even cover because they're not getting home. And now those guys got to cover longer. There's way more space available because guys are blitzing. It does not add up to me. And it's not college where you have A1 and A2 lines where you can put in guys. It's very minimal drop-off, if any. The drop-off stank from Vita Vea and Kalijah Cansey to Greg Gaines and whoever 97 is might as well be the Grand fucking Canyon, dude. It's unbelievable. Like, it's unnecessary. And
whoever 97, don't know, bro.
I don't know.
I don't either. We watch this team constantly. Obviously, we're not in the facility. We don't have that Greg Allman type access to this team. And I don't know every guy we sign week of or guys that have been in off the practice squad or whatever. I don't know who that guy was. No clue
idea
who that was.
I don't want to see him playing 38% of the snaps. I'll tell you that much. I don't know who he is.
Yeah, Jonathan Clark in the chat, who's made a lot of good points over the last few weeks. Jonathan, I feel like, you're an intelligent Bucs fan. He said fatigue. I'm thinking maybe Todd still had a little bit of PTSD from last time we played the Ravens, where fatigue was a big fucking issue in the second half, right? Ultimately, they wore us down and then ran down our throats in our last matchup. So maybe that was what was.
That's not it, because in the first quarter, Stank, we dominated time of possession. They had the ball for, I believe, 6 plays. Okay, we had the ball the entire first quarter. We dominated time of possession, and not only that, going into the second quarter, they took Derrick Henry completely out of the game. He sat on the bench. They said, we're not going to waste carries with this guy and run him into a brick wall. Let's do something different and open things up, then bring him back in. And they put in Justice Hill, I believe his name is, the other running back, little, scat back type of guy, pass catching dude, third down kind of guy. They put him in there and they kind of exposed not only the entire defense, but because of that line. People telling me, they were tired, trying to save them for Sunday against the Falcons. No, none of that shit. That's not true. None of that is true. None of that is true. And that is one of my that's not my biggest thing, but it's one of the most annoying things we had to watch. That's not the reason we lost, in my opinion, and maybe would have been a little bit differently. But it just makes me question if Todd is thinking too much and maybe holding this team back, especially the defensive side of the ball. Is he holding them back from being better? Like Kalijah Cansey should be playing a good chunk of snaps. Yaya Diaby, second-year guy, not injured. He's healthy. He's a freak of nature, very athletic human being, should be playing a majority of snaps. Like it does not add up to see these guys playing such low percentages when they are your stars. You don't see Derrick Henry, or you don't see Lamar Jackson playing 70% of the snaps. He's the star. I get he's a quarterback, but he's the star. That's not how these things work.
Listen, we can talk about the defense. We can point fingers at the defense. Defense fell apart, but we got to look at this game in context here, okay? We had control of this game, up until calamity started to hit. We had a bullshit holding call that took a touchdown off the board, made it 10-0 instead of 14-0. Unfortunate injury with Mike, with a hamstring, another ball that should have been a touchdown, and then our quarterback just decides to fucking lose his mind. And just an unforced error, probably worst throw he's had since he's been a Buc. And then compounded that with another one, on a panic throw into triple coverage or whatever the fuck that was. That was the snowball right there. The Ravens had no momentum. The defense had the momentum and they stole it away. And then our special teams, for goodness sakes, bro, can you be any worse on a kick coverage unit? It just snowballed and the defense was in front of that buzzsaw. And as soon as Lamar and that offense got some confidence, that's all she wrote. The air left the fucking building once Mike went out, and we never really caught our breath until garbage time where we made it look like it was a competitive game, but it wasn't a competitive game.
So that's kind of the next thing we're going to talk about anyway, which is Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I mean, so go back to that play that you just talked about, Stank. Mike Evans catching that ball, hamstring right as the ball's touching him, hamstring explodes. Feels like you're getting shot in the back of the leg from people I've talked to who've had an actual hamstring injury. Not something you'd have, like you, where you pull your hamstring in the shower. It just happened in that moment. He dropped the ball. So I understand it. People are kind of like, well, maybe if he doesn't drop that touchdown. He dropped it because his fucking hamstring exploded on him. Okay. He has the benefit of the doubt. He's a Hall of Famer. He dropped it. Happens. He got injured. You saw him. It clearly was because of the injury. So anyway, that happens and it just sucks the wind out of the team. And then 2 plays later, Baker tries to be a hero. He even said as much in the post-game presser. I was pressing. I was trying to do too much. When that Mike Evans injury happens, it kind of takes us all out of it. And he's trying to be the hero. I'm not a fan of any quarterbacks putting on that hero cape unless they're Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Joe Montana, and maybe a handful of others in the history of the NFL, let alone now. So, it's sad because this season, Stank, last year and years before, a moment like this would happen, derail the team, derail the game. This year, it has not happened. We've had moments we've overcome. This one, snowballed. They went down the field, they scored, and then, of course, later on in the game, the Godwin injury happens, and it's just like, holy shit, the entire season almost feels like a deflated, beach ball at this point. But, man, these are not light injuries at this point either, man. This is a big fucking deal.
No, you just took the legs out of your offense.
Literally.
Yeah, literally. It's like asking Usain Bolt to to race with 2 torn ACLs. I don't care what anybody says. You can try to sugarcoat this shit and say everything is going to be okay. It's not going to be okay. Can we still put up some decent offensive efforts? Can we rely on the offensive line and the run game, get really creative in the short passing game, use now we're really going to have to lean on the speed instead of the physicality and the size that we get with Mike and Chris. Yes, they're going to have to do all those things, but we're below average at the tight end position. Now we're probably one of the worst receiving cores in the NFL. And I don't give a fuck who's back there throwing the ball. Good luck sustaining, an offense, or at least even close to the production we've already sustained. And that's not me being all the sky is falling. That's just me being realistic. Mm-hmm. Can I be hopeful? Sure. We played a division opponent that we know very well this week in Atlanta, who we just lost to in just a despicable, embarrassing fashion just a couple weeks ago. And maybe on pure momentum and emotion, we come out and beat them. Don't know. I don't know how the team is going to show up, right? It seems like with Baker, we always play better when our backs are against the wall. Bitch, our backs are fucking through the wall. It's Kool-Aid. It's fucking Kool-Aid man time right now.
We're looking through a massive hole and we're in the wall, dude.
Yep.
So the only thing I can kind of lean on is saying, and we'll kind of steer it back to the offense, but the Todd Bowles' second time playing a team in 3 weeks. I tend to lean on the fact that, the side of history. Todd Bowles usually has something ready and usually plays better schematically. But again, there's just so much limitation with a guy like KJ Britt that I don't know how much I can lean on that. I don't know yet. And again, we have not seen our starting secondary play together more than I think 1 quarter since the very first game of the season. All right. So we've got Funderburk out there for at least the next 3 weeks. Zion is Zion. But going back to the offensive side, man, not having a Mike Evans, not having a Chris Godwin, those guys drive the offense. And Chris Godwin more so than Mike. And that's not a knock on Mike. Just Chris Godwin is a utility guy. He does all the heavy lifting. He does the dirty work. He gets the first downs on 3rd and 7 and 8 and 9. He's just that guy. And that's kind of his role on this team. To remove that and try to plug someone in and think it's just going to be a seamless transition because he's going to get open because of Chris Godwin is 50% of the reason those things get open and 100% of the reason that the balls are always caught. He makes unbelievable catches in traffic. Like, that's not something you're just going to put Jalen McMillan or Shepard or Trey Palmer into, and you're going to get even close to that production. It doesn't matter that it's the offensive way. It doesn't matter that the offense kind of flows through that spot. It's not going to happen with these guys. So they got to adjust. They got to figure out a way to. Trey Palmer's probably going to take up Mike Evans' spot. Jalen McMillan, Shepard probably going to split time in that role down there. I tend to believe they would go with Shepard. I'm curious what you think about that, Stank, because he's a veteran. So I feel like plus he'd have better chemistry with Baker, and I feel like he'd be more trusted in terms of finding the soft spots in the zone and things like that you'd get from being that slot guy, as opposed to J-Mac, who might make the wrong read, and Baker's throwing a ball to a spot, expecting him there, and then all of a sudden we got Jameis Winston interceptions happening all over the place, which I'm afraid of. I don't like that he's got to play now with guys that he doesn't have chemistry with, guys he hasn't played enough with, other than Shepard, and even that one's a stretch because he's limited physically. He's an older guy. So it's going to be something like Liam is really going to have his work cut out for him moving forward, for sure.
Definitely. You got guys out there that haven't shown that they can carry the load. We can talk about Sterling Shepard being a vet, former 1st-round pick. Guy's a little bit of fucking Looney Tune, loose cannon like we are. So I don't know. I don't know what we're going to get out of that guy. He's talking a big game like, I got to be in these young guys' ear and shit. Bitch, you almost cost us a game in New Orleans a couple weeks ago. So, fine. Talk is cheap. Let's see what we are now, because it isn't what we were. That offense is dead now for the rest of the season.
That is gone.
Dead and gone. Bury it. Boys to men. So hard to say goodbye. That shit's gone. It's not coming back. And you can't replace a guy like Godwin. Not only is he absolutely uncoverable in the slot, he's a fucking hell of a run blocking wide receiver too. So those guys make things work at the second level. We don't have somebody that can do that now. He was the physical presence. Mike, pretty good run blocker too when he wants to. So that has a ripple effect as well. Can't even wrap my mind around, how things are going to work. Other teams have, fucking KC's had a crazy, ugly receiving core, and they still seem to produce. So can you scheme guys open? Sure.
I think it comes
guys are in the NFL for a reason. So they do have some ability and skill, but Trey Palmer's hands have been inconsistent. Jalen McMillan hasn't looked like even a shadow of preseason Jalen McMillan, but that's probably because he's playing against, real NFL top tier corners now. So yikes.
Some of it too, Stank, is reps. I think getting reps makes a difference. It's hard to get into a rhythm. Even when he played at Washington, he saw the field a lot. He saw a lot of balls regardless. So he's in a little bit more of a rhythm. Now, coming in cold so far up to this point in the season, it's a little bit different. So I anticipate that they should be a little bit better. But I think it's up to Liam to kind of identify what they do well and not try to make Trey Palmer Mike Evans and not try to make Jalen Chris Godwin and not try to make Sterling Shepard Chris Godwin. Obviously, you got to run similar routes. You can't really change your entire playbook, but there's got to be different ways to do it. You got to have a little bit different nuances. You got to scheme these guys more so open by scheme as opposed to skill and talent. But we saw Trey Palmer have himself a pretty decent showing when he was given the opportunity to be a starter. We saw him play really well in a playoff game last season. He's had his moments. I think he's one of those guys that has a chip on his shoulder given the fact that he lost his job to a rookie almost right off the bat. And so you've got that to go. That's kind of working in our favor. And then you got Jalen McMillan, who's trying to make up. He's trying to make up for what I think he understands has been a shortcoming so far this season. So,
yeah.
But again, it still has to happen.
Completely different roles. You can shine when safety coverage is rolling to the other two receivers. Yeah. When safeties don't have to roll because they're not scared of you, when they don't have to adjust and they're perfectly happy, crowding the line of scrimmage and playing two fairly shallow safeties and making you beat them with the pass and crowding the run and trying to take the run away from you. Get used to it, Bucs fans. That's exactly what the fuck we're going to see. They're going to physically try to beat our ass up front and make us beat them with the pass. And not any defensive coordinator with a brain in his head is going to do that. And we don't have those guys that just can beat you one-on-one. So it's
going to be on Liam, though, to figure out ways to get them open, whether it's with pick plays, screen plays, crossers, things that are, misdirection plays, little gadgety type stuff. I think getting the ball out quick is going to be an important part of that. You're going to have to make the defenses honor that you can at least move the ball through the air, and just even if it's minimal, because if they crowd the line of scrimmage and maybe we're able to be physically better than some of these teams, but the Kansas City Chiefs, we are not going to be out physicaling them anytime soon. They are one of the best defensive teams in the league right now. They're the reason they're winning games, not because of Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce and no wide receivers. So, and we've been running the ball well, honestly. Even in the Ravens game, we ran the ball pretty well, just not enough times. And again, the score kind of dictates some of that, but it's different now. It's going to be 10-man boxes. I agree with you. So Liam's going to he's going to really have to show that he can figure things out. And Trey Palmer is fast. Let's figure out ways to get him the ball where that takes advantage of that skill set. J-Mac has his own skill set. Let's find ways to do it, pivot routes, things like that, where they're kind of cheating the system to where you're forcing the defense to have to play off maybe with more bundles or bunches formations, things of that nature. And I'd love to see them use that pony package, 3 running backs on the field at the same time more. Rashad is deadly out of the backfield. So has Bucky been proven as well. Yep. So get those guys out in there and make the defense have to basically cover everybody and don't make it easier for them. It's going to be a lot easier than having to cover Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, obviously. So these guys, and like to your point, man, J-Mac and Trey Palmer right now, up to this point in their careers, they don't beat coverage. They don't create separation. They just don't do it yet, unless it's a go route where you're getting a double move or anything like that with Trey Palmer. These guys got to have to prove that they belong in the NFL, and they don't have much time to grow up. It's literally this Sunday.
If you guys tuned in to see me blow smoke up your ass and say everything's going to be okay, you may as well turn the stream off now. If you think that I can be pessimistic at times and think that the sky is falling at times, you don't like that version of me, get used to it, because I personally don't see it. I just don't see how they're going to be able to compete. These next 3 games will be really telling, right? We get to find out really quick, how much we can, maneuver in this new offense, right? Because this is going to be a brand new offense. You take those two pieces away, it's a completely new experiment. So
I like
it's
Liam.
The NFL. It's the NFL. We are capable of winning games that we probably shouldn't. But these 3 games right here are going to be extremely tough.
Yeah. But so part of this equation, we didn't talk about it yet. Baker Mayfield, big part of the loss. All right. This is probably one of the, I'd say 1 or 2, maybe 3 games that since he's been a Buck where I could point to it and say we didn't win, and Baker was a major part of that. Aside from the defense, he did not help matters. We had 2 opportunities to score touchdowns where we throw picks, and just not picks where you're like, okay, it's a forced error. They schematically beat us. They confused us. A guy made a good play. These were unforced interceptions, man. These were bad throws. Not sure where the fuck they're going, late, avoiding the easier throw when you had Bucky open. Not once. He was open twice on that play where he just threw it to where J-Mac was open months ago. And again, bad interception in the red zone. One of the turning points of that game. We just lost Mike. 2 plays later, it's an interception. And they end up taking that all the way down, and it turns into a touchdown. Next play, I believe, is a run or an incompletion. In 3 passes, we had 2 interceptions, and those turned into 14 points really, really quick. And next thing you know, the game's very, very different. And in the middle of that, also add, our kicker missing a kick, which should have been a 4th down conversion try at least, as opposed to that. But beside all that, Baker cannot play like that moving forward. He has no more room for error. He has none. The defense is not going to help him. And now he has nobody in terms of being able to break a game open in terms of Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. He's got to play, he's got to play safe, I want to say, but he's got to understand the moment. And I think it's also on Liam to keep him from playing hero ball like you talked about, Stink. He cannot let him try to put it all on his shoulders. I think he plays well no matter what when he's back against the wall, has guys that nobody knows. Go back to when he was with Cleveland. He's had some moments like that. But it's up to Liam to kind of protect him from himself. Quick passes, quick 1 or 2 read type deals where he's not out there patting the ball, and get him in rhythm quickly and kind of try to ease him into the game. And man, for the love of God, I know we don't like the boxes we're just talking about, but you got to run the ball more, man. You're just going to have to at this point. You're going to have to figure it out. The offensive line's going to have to figure out a way to just get yardage at times, because you're going to have to take it out of Baker's hands, in my opinion, just to make sure he eases into the game a little bit, because I don't like him trying to win a game by himself. I just don't.
No, we all know what that Baker looks like. Like I said, we've seen that experiment before. With our former quarterback here, and that hero ball shit doesn't work in the NFL unless you got hero ball skills. And he's good, but he's not to that extent where he can just will this team to victory. He's got to play within the system. Yes, he can extend drives, and he's fucking the Baker we love. He's that guy, but you still got to have pieces around you that allow you to do that. And so, it's going to take some time for us to figure out what we are right now, right? We hear it in the preseason all the time. What's our identity? What the fuck is the identity of this team right now on offense? Don't know. Back to some of the coaching decisions you talked about. Yeah, I mean, we talked about the rotation of the defensive line. We talked about weird decisions like kicking a long field goal, when you really need to get points, and putting them, in favorable field position if we miss it. There was just a lot of weird shit. We couldn't kick the ball out of the end zone. We're giving up long fucking returns, short fields, soft coverage, all that shit. I mean, you can't deny that the coaching staff, panicked or got ultra conservative or whatever they decided to do, played a part in what we saw. And it just continued to snowball in the wrong direction. And yes, P&P, my dick energy is probably lower than it's been in a long time. Earlier today, I looked down, I was like, what the fuck is happening, bro? Sometimes it's happened to me before, but yeah, dude,
it's like you came out of a cold pool.
Yeah, bro. It's like the mushroom just coming out of the soil. Like, what's going on here, bro? Wake the fuck up. Okay. No time to fucking panic.
I'm with P&P, and I do think that we're going to win this Sunday. And I don't think it's going to be some 45-point explosion or anything of that nature. But I just have, again, at Todd Bowles with the defense, being able to play another team a second time, understanding what they did to him. I think he'll have something better, and I think they're going to find a way to lean on the talent that they do have on offense, which is the running game. But to your, what was the point you were just now talking about with
dick energy?
No, before that, about the
Oh,
offense.
okay. Yeah.
It's going to be different offense.
Yeah, a new identity, new offense, completely. This is you can't make chili without beef and fucking beans, bro. And our beef and beans aren't there anymore.
The point I was going to make was when Mike went out of the game,
the
Bucs didn't have a secondary game plan to make up for the fact that Chris Godwin got bracket covered a little bit. He was also open at other times. And I think moving forward, Baker and Liam have to be on the same page of, hey, if you have a check down or a quick pass open, you have to throw it. You can't wait. I know you want to wait for the bigger play sometimes and get to your second, third read. But if that first one is open in this offense right now with these guys, you got to take it. You can't pat the ball. You can't wait for a bigger play. Baker did a lot of that on Monday night, and I think it was a little bit unnecessary. And there are times where there's guys there, you just got to get it to them sometimes, man. You just got to take it and go and move on to the next play and get yardage as opposed to nothing. This offense now cannot afford to get nothing on a play. They need to get as much as they can every single time. And if that guy's there, if Bucky's there, if Cade's there, you got to throw that pass, man. You can't pat it. You can't wait for the bigger play, which I think is part of what gets Baker in trouble, is he doesn't just take what's there sometimes. Take what's there, man, and just keep it moving. I think that's the best way. And if we punt, we punt. You don't have to just trust that the defense can figure it out and you can get into a rhythm as an offense. It's going to be tough, man. But Baker's got to be as much, as well as he's played up to this point, aside from maybe 3 quarters over the last 2 games, he's got to be even better. He's got to be a coach on the field. He's got to be, he's got to be grandpa out there in terms of his risk taking and his leadership. He's got to be on point, man. It's tough because I like him when he's a gunslinger, but he's going to have to pull some of that back a little bit and just kind of be a little bit more focused and tuned into when that should happen, when it shouldn't. Because if he does that, I think we have a chance, honestly. We can adjust and kind of steer it in a different direction.
I go back to our guy Tom. He did a whole lot with a whole little in New England, won a lot of championships on the back of a strong defense, and a smart, intelligent offensive game plan, and him never trying to be a hero, but just always being intelligent, being quick, throwing to the open receiver. That's what you got to be, right? You got to be
Tom Brady back?
No, I want Tom Brady's mentality back.
Brain.
Yeah, I want his brain. So,
I know a guy.
Tom, and a guy. So maybe we can make something like that happen. But, we've got guys in the locker room that were around Tom. We've got a guy in the quarterback room that has learned from Tom and also, is in there with Baker. I never looked at Kyle Trask as that guy who could be a mentor. But maybe
the voice of reason, Kyle Trask.
Maybe it's for him to say, listen, sometimes when you're back against the wall, right, and you don't have any more chips to put on the table, you just have to
stop. I'm not even gonna let you finish this point. No,
all right,
we're not doing that. No, thanks. All right, Todd Bowles, okay, friend of the program, friend of me, friend of mine, okay, an actual friend of mine. All right, but he's gotten a lot of heat. And he got a lot of heat in that press conference right after the game. He got a lot of heat from fans. Sank. I have not spoken to you about this at all. Okay, so no. I really don't know your take on this. Did Todd Bowles make a mistake in that moment? Not hindsight. Did he make a mistake keeping Chris Godwin in late in the game, down 10, with I believe it was like a 1% chance that he could pull off the win? Was that a mistake in that moment? Leave him in that game.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So if that was you as coach, you would have never done that.
Yeah, if that was me as a coach, I would have had the B team out there when we were down. I don't know, was it 41-10 or whatever the fucking score was at that point? I don't remember. I kind of blacked out for a little bit there. Was drinking some of the beverages that they serve at the stadium. Those $23 beers. So I don't remember extremely clearly. But there was a time where we should have waved the white flag and try to get some of our irreplaceable guys out of harm's way. But that's why I don't coach in the NFL, man. Knowing what I know now, what we only dress 5 receivers. There's a lot to it. And, those guys in that locker room are not a big fan of waving the white flag. So that's why I don't get paid what Todd Bowles gets paid. And that's why I'll never coach at that level, because I don't know, man. You know, you've got to do what you feel is right. And that's what Todd felt was right. And who are we to question that guy? He's had a lot of success. He's won Super Bowls. You know, he in most cases, you know, seems to make the right choice for this team. The locker room loves him. All those things come into play. And as I said before, and Skip, you know, our friend Skip, you know, really gave me some perspective. You know, we should have all been crying when we were up by 24-20, whatever it was in New Orleans, and they were out there, you know, still trying to put up some points. So
in Washington,
it's kind of sour grapes at this point. And I'd rather not continue to beat that dead horse because it's not going to change, you know, it's not going to change anything. It just isn't.
Here's my thing. Earlier in the season, or not earlier in the season, sorry, last year in the playoffs against the Lions, he waved that white flag. He pulled his guys out, and everyone kind of criticized him and said he still had a chance. Okay. Not to say that he thought about that in the moment, but fast forward to, you know, this past Monday night, you have a chance. You only have 4 receivers beyond, you know, with Chris Godwin, with Mike Evans going now, you only have 4 receivers left. This is not high school, college. Ryan Clark made a great point. You don't have just plethora of guys. You can just take out the entire starting unit, put in a bunch of dudes. Okay, I get it. In that moment, though, man, I really did not have a problem with it. He could have gotten injured like that in the first quarter. Could have happened in the second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. And every single one of these guys who signs up to play ball is signing up to play 60 minutes every single week because you're paying them to play 60 minutes every single week. And with that signing, they understand every risk that comes with it. We could die. We could break a leg. We could have our eyeball poked out. All of these things, okay? So in that moment, also, who are you to go tell a competitor we're not going to compete, but we have a chance, coach. We have a chance. And also, you send a message to your guys of like, I'm giving up on you. I get it. You got to protect your guys sometimes. I think that was kind of a, yeah, from an outsider looking in, but as a competitor, even myself as just a youth basketball coach, I'm going to keep my guys in if I have even a small chance because it resonates beyond that game. I know it's Baltimore. It doesn't matter in the the entire scope of things. But in that moment, I had no problem with it, honestly. And we could always go back and say hindsight's 2020. You can always look back at any decision and say, I shouldn't have done that. We've all had those moments in our lives. Yep. But in that moment, I did not have a problem with it. I will never have a problem with it. Unless it's a meaningless game and you already have the playoffs in hand, then I have a problem with it. But in this moment, in that, I had no problem with it, man. Just
you asked how I felt right after the game, and I was coping just like everybody else was, and that was exactly my response. Like, why the fuck was he in the game?
I didn't think that at the stadium, though, Stink. I was walking out. I did not have that thought at all.
Yeah, bro. It's like watching a car crash, and you know you want to like fucking reverse time and figure out how could that have been avoided. Well, the butterfly effect doesn't work that way, and like I said, it's kind of a waste of time. I think everybody's already got the tears out for that. I already cried like a little bitch myself, and so. Now I'm at peace with it, and honestly, I'm not going to question Todd Bowles' decision. He did what he felt was right. The team supported him. Everybody in the locker room supports him. Chris Godwin supports him. So fuck what we think. They felt like they did what they had to do, and they're professionals. That shit can happen at any time, and we need to move the fuck on with that and focus on reality now, which is this.
No more LDE, dude. Calm down, okay?
No, I'm trying to say. This is reality now, right? We're gonna have to take the spoonful of shit and swallow it and move the fuck on.
So the other point to this question is about letting Mike Evans play after he was kind of hobbled going into this game over the last couple of weeks. It looked like he was hobbled after that initial touchdown catch. I'm sorry, but if you know Mike Evans and if you've coached at any level, everybody has a player where you could go to him and say you're sitting down and he could look you right dead in the eyes and be like, the fuck I am. Right. And that's Mike Evans on this team. And probably Levante David. Those are the two guys that you probably can't tell them to sit down, and they probably earned that just because of their merit and what they are and who they are to this team. You're not going to tell that guy to sit down. And Mike Evans is not going to stand on the sidelines knowing that he could at least be out there even as a decoy. And you know what? The ball goes to him. He pops his hamstring. It is what it is. It happened. I don't question that one either, man. Todd Bowles is also not just like, hey, fuck you, you're playing. This is not high school ball. There's a medical staff, and the medical staff gives him A-OK, and Mike says, I'm good to go. He's got to trust that. He's got to trust that. He's got to trust those people. He doesn't have time all day to like massage his hamstring and feel if it's really good or not. That's not his job. His job is to take the info that's given to him and just go with it. And I had no problem with that decision either. I'm assuming you're with me on that.
Yeah.
Mike.
Yeah, I am. You're not going to tell that guy to fucking do anything. He's going to tell you, and you got people in the chat like Cali Bucks crying about it. Cali, bro, like, listen, I know you're a janitor at a school, right? And when you're in there mopping and your knee is sore and your boss comes to me and says to you, hey man, you need to take the week off. But you got a little fucking Johnny and Susie who are hungry, right? They need new backpacks. They haven't had new shoes since they were 3, right? But you need to earn a living for your family, right? The same situation with Mike Evans, okay? So calm down.
Yeah, the other part of it too, man, like somebody said in the chat, the Ravens didn't take out their starting defensive players. They were in there. So, like I said,
Lamar was in there until the very last series for them. He had no business fucking being in there either.
Yeah, I mean, and that's their offensive series was to waste time. So it's a little bit different on top of that. But again, yeah. So moving on, we talked about the injuries thing. One last question, man, because it's something that a lot of people are talking about. I'm talking about it on Twitter. Cooper Kupp this morning. D-Hop gets traded for a 4th-round conditional pick that could become a 3rd-rounder if he plays 60% of the snaps and they make the conference championship. The Chiefs, that is. He's now a Chief. Cooper Kupp has been put up for trade. He's been a discussion guy all throughout the last couple of days. Should the Bucs, they're asking for a 2nd-round pick, and the rumor is that they'll eat some of the salary. Usually when they eat the salary, that means they're going to take a higher pick from you. If you're giving them a low ball out, they're probably not going to take on some of that salary. Would you go after Cooper Kupp, who easily slides in? We've been saying the Cooper Kupp role has been Chris Godwin in this offense. Liam Cohen knows him. He knows the offense. He basically slides in effortless. He's seamless. Day one, go get the ball. Amazing route runner still to this time. His injuries, I believe, are a little bit behind him because it's been mostly some of that weird hamstring that he had for an entire year. Would you go after Cooper Kupp, Stink?
No.
So you'd go with the young talent that we have now and just kind of find out what you have and see if they can grow.
I would. There's other receivers I might consider bringing in, but that guy's coming off injuries as well. He's in his early 30s. He's a rent player. You're not going to, if you have any hopes of, that Godwin's going to make a full recovery and you're going to bring that guy back here, you're not going to take on a receiver salary like Cooper. So there's no future here for him unless Mike retires. But even then, I don't know. You're not going to give Godwin and Cooper the same type of money when they play the same fucking position.
It'd be a rental.
It'd be a rental. And you're going to give up draft capital to do that. And we know Jason Light too well to know that he's not going to do something like that. So there are other receivers I feel like maybe we should consider out there. Cooper's not one of them. I don't see it happening. It's fun to play that game. He owes us one, right? I mean, he fucking stole a Super Bowl from us. So, yeah, I would like him to come in here. But really, I don't like looking at Cooper's stupid face. That fucking caveman beard he's got. Yeah. I don't like the kid. I don't want him here. I don't want to look at him.
He looks like an old man. He looks like an old man who still thinks he's cool. So he wears his hair all cool, and he tries to be cool with the beard. A lot of grays in there. I don't like it. It's not a terrible idea, only because of the fit. But I understand you'd be doing it knowing that it's an absolute rental, and maybe hoping he'd restructure and let you keep him for really cheap and not get. He'd never get in the way of Chris Godwin, no matter what. Even if they did make this trade. Don't get it twisted. Chris Godwin would still be the focal point. They would not dump him for Kupp, no matter what, Cooper Kupp. So it fits nicely, but again, a 2nd-round pick, too rich. Even a 3rd-round pick, too rich for my taste. I think they'd have to be a 4th-round type of thing for it to happen, only because he brings something that you don't have right now, which is he knows the system, he's dependable, and he runs the routes. He runs the routes really, really, really well. Like one of the best ever.
Yeah. He is.
Is that enough? Is that enough? Is he going to be able to bring to the table more long term for the rest of the season? Buy you some time between now and Mike Evans, and maybe when Mike comes back, you got a Cooper Kupp, Mike Evans type of scenario going on. I don't know. It depends. It depends what happens this week, in my opinion. But it's not in their MO. It's not in their MO to do that as that front office.
Yeah, I want everybody right now. Everybody's listening. Everybody's watching. Everybody who's going to watch this later in your car tomorrow or next week or whatever, whenever you watch this. I want you guys to take your Buccaneer fandom hat off for a second, okay? All right, you're the GM of this football team. Are we 90%, in the a potential Super Bowl contender?
No.
You can't say yes to that. Then adding a piece like Cooper at the cost it's going to cost to bring him in here. It's just not worth it ultimately. If Brady's here and we've got Mike and Chris and AB goes down, and you want to bring in a guy like that to continue to fight and take that shot, maybe you do it, but not with this roster. No.
Yeah, listen, that makes sense. And then, if I'm going to make a trade right now for this team, I would either find a linebacker that somehow is available and cheap, or I go and I get Myles Garrett. Okay. And people who are out there saying, no way you give up 2 first rounders for Myles Garrett. I'm sorry. But if you were drafting 19 to 32, all right, obviously not 32, but 19 to 25, like we have been and we probably will be, you're never going to draft Myles Garrett. You were never going to find a Myles Garrett guy. Watt, I believe, fell to like 22 only because that's not something that happens very typically. So you were not going to get a Myles Garrett guy. And I think 2 first rounders, that's what Khalil Mack got, I believe. Who else was it that got traded also a couple years ago? Von Miller got traded for, I believe, 2 first rounders. Like, that's the price for that guy. And I'm willing to pay that because he comes in here and he's immediately, bam, defensive line completely solved. Obviously, stop with the D-line shifting and all that nonsense. You would not have to blitz as often, Todd Bowles. It makes everybody look better. The pass coverage won't have to be pass coverage for as long. It's an immediate fix for a lot of things, and the Band-Aid's a lot of others. So that if I'm making a move, that's probably the one I'm making. But
you gotta have it's gotta be both parties gotta want that to happen. And I'm sure Myles Garrett's looking at this team right now saying, there's other places I'd rather play right now. Just based off of what just happened, this team is just taking 2 major shots. Maybe a week ago, I'm like, hell yeah, I want to be on this Bucs roster. But right now, I doubt he wants to, and I'm assuming he has some say in this. Lewis and SoCal, $4.99 super chat says, any way we can cut KJ Britt? No. He is so awful. Cut him, and then who's going to play back there? Kalen DeLoach? Like, I don't know. Who's his backup?
JJ Russell. JJ Russell should be the other 2 options. Here's the thing. They see these guys in practice, and even then, they don't think that they're better enough to play over KJ Britt. Don't get it twisted. KJ Britt, everybody in that building knows he can't pass coverage. They all know. That's why Dennis was playing from the beginning of the season on passing downs, long downs, passing, third down. Like, everyone knew what he's incapable of doing. And now they're just kind of stuck with him at this point. You got to find creative ways to make up for that. You got to find creative ways to get him off the field and put someone in there that can do that. Tyke Smith with a concussion takes one of those linebacker hybrid guys right off the field. Hopefully he's back. That's another blow. It's tough, man. You kind of have to trust that they see the guys that potentially could replace him, and even then, they don't think that they're good enough. But, Stank, there's something we didn't talk about, which we were yelling about in the game too, so we're going to kind of rewind a little bit here for the last thing before you end the show. The consistent field goal, not field goal, getting back into field goal range plays that the Ravens ran against Todd Bowles' defense, where Todd Bowles, whether it's Levante, Todd, these guys not understanding the moment, but how is that not the one thing they're saying in the huddle? Hey, they're not trying to score on 3rd and goal from the 38-yard line. They're just trying to get back into field goal range. Be aware. Like and it happened over and I believe they got 3 field goals while being kicked out of field goal range with sacks or losses on plays. 3 times they still got back into field goal range and kicked a field goal because we were unaware, and they did on the same play. 5 times they called that stupid screen. Like, what is happening there? How is that happening to your team as a defensive coach? Drove me nuts.
You're playing prevent. And so, they're running their guys deep. It's fucking 3rd and 38, and you're going to have all that underneath coverage, and it's up to the linebackers and your ends to get out there and your corners to rally and your safeties to, I don't know what the fuck is wrong with Whitehead. He's got to be injured too, right? Like that guy equally as bad as KJ, and KJ's going to take all the bullets out there. He's pretty much the glaring weakness out there right now, but Whitehead played like shit too.
Antoine played like shit.
Antoine hasn't been himself since he's been back. At least it doesn't seem like he's out there, making the plays, although he did return a fumble recovery for a touchdown the week before. But, it's going to take him some time to get back. Kalijah some time to get back to their full coverage, full speed. I don't know. We're just not.
Jordan didn't play well.
Yeah, Jordan didn't play well, and KJ's not playing well either. But none of them, everybody behind the line is going to look like shit when you're not getting any pressure. And that's not me excusing KJ Britt. or these guys in the secondary. But if you're not able to get pressure with 4 and your blitzes aren't getting home, which they weren't for the most part outside of that first series, maybe.
Kind of hard to do that with your B line, your B defensive line staying.
It is. But he's got that rotation for a reason we probably don't know or understand.
It doesn't make sense.
Find out. It doesn't make sense, which is why that typically tells me that Todd's got a reason for doing it that we're not all aware of, because Todd's not fucking stupid.
I know he's not stupid, but
not. No, I know. What I'm trying to say is whether you like him or not, there's a reason he was doing what he was doing. We just don't know what that reason is. And so for us, it just looks so stupid, but we know it's not. There's a reason he was doing that.
My thing right now is this team as a defense, especially, we are not a smart team. We're not a smart defense. We're not situationally aware. Like, we should know in that moment, they're just trying to get back into field goal range. They're not trying to get a go ball down the sidelines. Like, they're designing things to make a space and avoid screen pass, get 18 useless fucking yards. In the grand scheme of things, they're not useless, though. It's a field goal. It's 3 points. But they were able to build at 3. That's 9 points. That's almost 10 points you're adding to it just by nonsense. And we gave it to them. Missed tackles on 2 of those screen passes. Zion
getting beat over the top, I think probably was enough.
That was the killer.
Enough for Todd to be like, okay, we're gonna really sit back on our heels. We can't allow that to happen. We're gonna let them throw underneath and get these easy fucking 20+ yard plays, and give them the field goal. Don't like that. Nobody does. Nobody should. But I feel like that's probably the reason why we were already battered and bruised and taking it on the chin. And I will go back to what I said earlier. Lamar and that offense is a problem. They make everybody look silly. They're hard to defend. They can beat you in multiple ways out there. And thankfully, we don't have to play offenses like that every week. We do have a really good offense coming in here this week, though. One that kind of was able to have their way with us. We made some plays as well on defense, but we were at full strength then, and we're not now. And so
that game was a shootout too, and we don't have
game was a shootout. Yeah, we don't have that right.
to shoot out. So
we sure don't.
But we did run the ball well against that team, and I do believe that they don't have a good run defense on top of that. So if I'm the Bucs, obviously we don't want to do too much of this preview because we'll be back here tomorrow night. I'm focused on running the ball on the Falcons and maybe leaning on Tucker in the third and fourth quarter, gas these guys out, pound them to death, and squeak out a win and steal one at home. And the ones that matter like that's a big one. You kind of keep yourself in first place at that point, and you have the win over them.
Yep.
It's a good win. It's a good win going against, going into the next week with the Chiefs where you're almost guaranteed. It's going to be a tough one. You're going to have a lot of luck to win that game. But then against the Niners, winnable. Get to that bye week, Stank, and we're smooth sailing, in my opinion, after that. We got a lot of winnable games after that, regardless of Chris and Mike. Hopefully Mike comes back sooner rather than later. And then at least you can kind of lean on a little bit of a regular look for this team. And hopefully over that time, somebody has stepped up between these 3 wide receivers and kind of shines and shows that they can handle some of what Chris Godwin was carrying. And you never know. Maybe the run game is the emerging factor in all of this. Who knows? We've got 3 guys back there. Should be able to figure it out. Offensive line starting to play better. Let's figure it out. So, all right, like I said,
we're speaking reality right here, okay? On paper, we're in trouble. It's football, though. That ball does weird things. Players do weird things. We still do have talent. Guys can make plays. Turnovers are the big equalizer in the NFL. We put, Atlanta comes in here overconfident, and our guys are just seething with their fist balled up, looking for a fucking fight because they've just ingested that poison and been sitting on it all week. Yeah, we can win this game, but we've got to play our best football. We can't be ultra conservative. We're still going to have to score some points. Still going to have to be aggressive on defense and put pressure on offenses too. I
think they can.
This game is fucking important for the confidence of this football team. Really, it really is. Like I feel like the entire season kind of teeters on how we face, whether we beat Atlanta or not, what kind of effort this team puts forward this week at home, in front of a crowd that all feels like shit right now. Thankfully, we're going to be wearing those amazing creamsicle jerseys, right?
No.
It's going to give us a boost.
No, it's
right?
Not.
Because
it's going to hurt us, actually. So I really do think that they can rally around this. They can turn this into, a rallying cry for the entire team. And remember, it's a division game. This has a little bit more weight behind it. These guys take it a little bit more pride in these games. We lost to them a few weeks ago. We want to right that wrong. We thought we should have won that game. I like it. And keep in mind, Atlanta doesn't know what they're going to face at this point because we don't even know. So what we're going to show.
I'm sure they're terrified.
No, I'm just saying, if you're going to have a moment to like pull some shit out of a hat, it's this week because they don't know what you're going to scheme up. They don't know what you have planned. They don't know what kind of offense we're going to try to shift over to. It's not going to be too different, obviously. But man, let's lean on what we found out, which we don't run the zone very, very well. We haven't done it too often. Let's use those counter plays. Let's run those gaps and do it. Let's do stuff that we can do well. Yeah. I think we're starting to find our rhythm there as a running team, and maybe this is the game that we can kind of steal it because of that. I'd love to see some misdirection, those handoffs that we were seeing to Sterling Shepard. Let's see those go to Trey Palmer, some end around, some fun little stuff like that. Let's steal a couple of plays, a couple of chunks, maybe a touchdown here and there, and you never know, man. You never know. Punch that Kirk Cousins guy in the mouth, and a lot of bad things usually happen. The Seahawks just did it, and they're not a special team, although they are in first place somehow. But they just did it, and I don't believe that they are a better team than us. So let's go out there. Let's punch these guys. You punch any team in the mouth, Stank, good things usually happen. And we got Yaya Diaby on this team still. Let's get out there, Yaya. Get out there.
Yeah, we're gonna have to buck. We're gonna have to tuck. We're gonna have to
Yaya.
What? We're gonna
have to wide our way down the field.
Yeah, we are. We're gonna need a lot of that. Cade Otton, who just paid for the sins of his ancestors out
every
end of that
tight
game.
End ever.
Holy shit. Has anybody checked on Cade Otton this week, bro?
That man is sore.
Got his ass whooped.
Oh my God.
For this team.
He's probably he probably looks like the Michelin Man. It's just ice packs. He's just walking around constantly like just Michelin Man of ice packs. Hey, listen, make sure you hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe if you are new. Appreciate you guys bouncing over to the new stream after the first one was absolute dog shit, which was not our fault. Absolutely on YouTube, 100%. And the fact that Stank had no pants on, which very disturbing in itself. And if you are new, hit the subscribe button. And listen, you may have probably disagreed with something that either one of us said, probably most of what Stank said. Leave it in the comments section. We do read that sometimes and laugh at you while we have coffee. It's an awesome time for all. So hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and we will be back tomorrow at 7:20 p.m., back at our regular time on a Thursday night to preview the absolutely horrendous and very ugly creamsicle game that will be coming to us on Sunday at Raymond James Stadium. I hate it. I will never like it. That color is absolutely hideous. Go Bucs.
Kickoff, set it off, go to Vegas, bet it all, put it on the Bucs win, whoever they gon' play gon' fall. Don't say I ain't told y'all, loose cannons gon' fold y'all. Yeah, the Heat be 9-3, but it gets real cold in the fall. That's when the season start, Bucs come in 40 hard, win after win, ripping the division.